right, good morning, everyone. Thank you all for coming out today. My name is Olivia Farnsworth. I am the current president of UND NGPA and the FY committee co-chair.
Hello, my name is Avery Eichsenberger. I am the current president of the UND chapter of Women in Aviation. I'm also honored to serve as the chair of the Faces of the Industry Planning Committee this year. It's my pleasure to welcome you all to the 4th annual Faces of the Industry Summit. The Planning Committee has been working diligently all semester and building their networks through the year to gather speakers from across the world to be part of the Faces of the Industry this year.
All right, so we have 2 panels taking place today. The first of which will be beginning at 11. It is our All Angles of the Industry panel. After this panel, we will have a short break. Then following our break, we will have our second panel of the day, which is Beyond the Degree, which will be beginning at 1400. All panels will include a question and answer portion, so please hold any questions until the end. Now I'd like to hand it over to the other 3 org representatives of the UND Aviation Affinity orgs to introduce themselves and their respective organizations.
Hello, I'm Taiga Kato. I'm the president of Professional Asian Pilot Association of UND chapter. And first, I would like to thank to all the panelists who came across the country to come to visit this incredible event. And I hope everybody here today will learn something important and their life experience. And thank you.
Hi everyone, I am Nicole Cirne Ventura. I am the current president for Latino Professionals in Aerospace. I want to thank everyone that came and everyone that took time off their lives to come and speak to all of us and tell us your experiences. And yeah, thank you.
Hi everyone, I'm Numuso Diane. Last name is spelled Diane, so everybody can call me Diane. I'm the president of OBAP UND chapter, the organization of Black aerospace professionals. I'm an aviation student from Mali, West Africa. As the president of UND OBAP, I'm proud to support diversity in aviation. And I really want to thank you guys for coming today, and hopefully everybody can take something from this event. Thank you.
Thank you all. Our student leaders this year have worked exceptionally hard to put on this event. We started our planning event for this in May and worked all throughout the summer and the academic year to bring everyone together today. The student leaders you see today use their personal networks to contact speakers from all over the world. They work together on all parts of the planning process, including organizing our meals, moderating and leading our panels, and planning the event schedules. Thank you to all the student leaders who have helped put this event on. We also want to give a special thank you to the Joanne A. Selkirk Diversity and Aerospace Fund, an alumni fund dedicated to initiatives in UND Aerospace. This event would not be possible without their support. Finally, one of the most fundamental parts of this event is our speakers. Our speakers have been extremely gracious, working with our student leaders to form questions and navigate their time in Grand Forks. Each of them have been incredibly generous in their participation in this event. Thank you all to speakers here today, and thank you to everyone in attendance. We're going to be getting started here in a few minutes with our All Angles of the Industry panel, so sit tight, and we'll get our speakers up here.
The All Angles of the Industry panel looks to highlight diverse careers in aerospace and discuss overcoming adversity as a minority within the aerospace industry. At this time, I am honored to welcome our moderators, Sophia Schmiel and Mateo Sandoval Luna, as well as our All Angles of the Industry panelists to the stage. Just a reminder to everyone in the audience, once we begin our panel, we are expecting everyone to stay seated until the end, just out of respect for our moderators and panelists. So yeah, thank you everyone.
Alrighty. Well, thank you for the intro, Olivia. So my name is Mateo Sandoval Luna. I'm the Face of the Industry Chair for Latin Professionals in Aerospace chapter here. I'm also a member of NGPA and a couple other clubs on campus.
Hi, my name is Sophie Schmiel. I'm a senior here at UND, also working on my CFII, and this will be my 3rd year with Faces of the Industry. Yeah.
Hi, my name is Emmy Miller. I am here with the Pilot Mental Health Campaign as one of the board of directors. I'm also a member of Women in Aviation, UND alum of 22.
I'm Nancy Barchard. I'm a 787 captain at United Airlines. I am a 1984 graduate of UND. So it's been 41 years since I've been back, and I'm thrilled to be here.
Hi, my name is Chris O'Brien. I'm international flight attendant for United, based out of Chicago. Been flying for almost 31 years. It's glad to be here.
My name is Ted Fosselman, first officer with Delta Airlines out of Detroit and 2019 graduate of UND.
Good morning. My name is Lance Lau. I'm the director of training at Commute Air, retired 777 examiner at United Airlines.
Hey everyone, I'm Victor Sanbudaroth. I'm a first officer with Republic Airways. I was here at UND from 2019 to about 2023.
Hi, my name is Kenneth Chen. I'm on the board of directors for Professional Aviation Pilots Association. Also a first officer at Delta Airlines on the 320, and then UND alum of 2020.
Alrighty, well, getting started here. We kind of heard where you guys currently work, but when you started your education, did you foresee yourself being in the positions that you're in now? And how did your goals change or career evolve over time? So you guys can kind of jump in, whoever wants to.
Okay, how did my career start? Is that the first part of the question?
Yeah.
So I grew up in northern Wisconsin. My dad was a pilot for American Airlines. Usually I think it's a good start when you have family that's in the industry, because I knew I wanted to fly since I was about 5 years old and was always around airplanes. So it was pretty easy. I was in Wisconsin. One of the closest universities was North Dakota that had an aviation program. My dad and I flew around to different ones, and we both really loved UND. It was much smaller, I will tell you, than it is today. It's surreal to see. It's come a long way, and it's really impressive. But I just pursued through the school, and then general aviation. I did flight instructing for a while, and then aerial photography, and then got on with commuters, which back then it was Eastern Metro Express in the Caribbean, which doesn't exist anymore, and many of those airlines don't. And then I got on with United, and that's, I don't know if there's a second part to that.
Well, did you foresee yourself being in the position that you're in now?
Yes, actually that was my dream. And I had my dad, as an example, being an American Airlines pilot, and he was flying international on wide-body jets in the end of his career. So that was always the goal. I'm just going to fly the biggest airplane. I'm going to go all over the world. And I, even as a 16-year-old girl, when I first soloed, I said, that's my goal. And right now I'm flying Paris, Rome, Athens, all over the world in the 87. So yeah, I'm exactly where I hoped I'd be.
And then is there anybody that wants to jump in that maybe isn't where you initially expected yourself to be?
So I guess I ended up at Delta Airlines. It wasn't where I expected. I wanted to go to American Airlines, and I had a career kind of all mapped out, and things kind of happened. I put my apps out and had the interview with Delta and United, had 2 job offers in front of me, and was a captain at PSA Airlines prior to here. And I guess I just kind of took the opportunity and weighed out the balances and talked to friends, and they said, go, you have a legacy waiting for you. So I just took the leap and went off to Delta and haven't looked back since. So it's great to have a map and a plan in your head of where you would like to go, but keep the blinders down and be open and receptive to where your career is going to take you.
Yeah, I mean, this is such a volatile industry sometimes, and you never know what's going to happen.
Mine was a little different. Growing up in Hawaii, I thought that you had to be white to be a pilot. Going back to my father's generation during World War II, he wanted to be a pilot, but was told that he was not allowed to be a pilot because he was Asian. So when I told him that I do have an interest and I want to be a pilot, essentially his response to me is, "Don't you know that they don't let us do that?" Then he said, "Well, you've never listened to me in the past, so why start now?" So I essentially went down to the local airport and took a flying lesson, and that's how I got started. It was very challenging. I was the first Asian pilot to fly at Frontier Airlines. I was the first Asian to be allowed into the training center at Continental Airlines. I was the first Asian to be allowed to be an examiner on an aircraft. A lot has changed since those days.
And I just want to give a side of my experience. So I first came to UND in 2019 as an air traffic management major because I had a similar kind of perspective, like growing up at sea, mainly airline pilots being white. So I was like, oh, I can't be a pilot. I'll just go to air traffic control because it still seems pretty cool. But after taking my first private pilot lesson in AVIT 102 in 2019, I was like, okay, I see a diverse set of recruiters coming to UND. I was like, okay, I'll give it a try. You know, talk to my parents about finances, went into it, and I never saw myself at Republic as right now. I didn't know who they were at the time. Never saw myself as a pilot, and I'm glad that UND or any Part 141 school gave me the opportunity to, you know, see that people like me or a diverse background can make it into aviation. So I think that representation does matter. I know people have different perspectives on that, but I truly believe it. Thank you.
I'll also share a bit about my journey. I came to UND. I really wanted to be an air traffic controller. That was all I cared about. Part of the program required you to have a backup just in case, and it's a good thing that they required that because I went all the way through at UND, went through all the FA hoops for my application, and my medical got denied. So I pivoted to my backup, which was UAS, and I now work for a Part 135 drone delivery company, and I think I'm better off for doing that switch and having that backup way back when than if I had been able to stick with my original dream.
Awesome. Yeah, we have an incredible range of backgrounds and to where you guys are now. It's really amazing.
Next question. Is there anything you wish you could say to your younger self? Any piece of advice, words of wisdom?
When I look back, I think probably the greatest thing is there were times when I thought, I can't do this. I'm not sure that I belong. When I started, we were 4% female. So I think pilots say maybe female pilots are 8%. But in the 1980s, and my father was very good at preparing me for this, he would say, they're not necessarily going to want you to succeed. So you're going to have to be that good. You're going to have to work really hard, and you're going to have to fly your heart out and show them that you're capable of doing the job. And then you'll show them. And so there were times when I thought, oh, why do I have to keep proving myself? And why do I have to feel like I have to be better to be equal? And now I can say I'm 37 years at United Airlines. I've followed the exact path I hoped I would. And there were times that I would be like, I don't know if it's worth it. And looking back now, I would tell myself, keep working at it. Everything, every little hurdle, it's worth it. This is the greatest career in the world. It's really great.
Can you repeat the question again? Sorry. I had an answer in my head. Trust me.
Yeah. So do you have any piece of advice or words of wisdom that you wish you could have given your younger self? So anything when you were going through training that you wish somebody would have told you?
Yeah, so I only left UND 2 years ago, so it wasn't too long ago, but I do wish, starting out, I would ask for help. My personality is I like to do everything by myself. I feel like that's most type A personalities with pilots, but it's okay to ask for help. I've learned over the years that it's not a sign of weakness, it's a sign of you actually being willing to collaborate with your peers and then translate into CRM what you we'll practice basically in day 102, all the way to the airlines. So asking for help, I'd say, is the number one thing I wish I told my younger self, even though it wasn't too long ago. But don't be afraid. Like, it could be like an awkward ask, like, even if you don't know the person in your classroom, don't know the person, in general, just awkwardly to ask, like, hey, I don't understand this, can you help me? 9 times out of 10, they will help you. It's one of the hard things I had to learn.
When I came to UND here, I try to basically not compare myself to others. It's really easy to do that here, especially because everybody's in the same flight course, and you're trying to get into the next flight course for the next semester. And so you kind of in the back of your head start competing against each other, in a way. But really all that does is kind of, whenever something doesn't go your way, it's a lot easier to put yourself down. So what I would have told my younger self is just don't compare yourself to others. Your journey is so much different than everybody else's. And especially once you leave UND, your journey is going to be much different than others. And I think, at least for me, I always enjoyed the journey, because I always knew the end goal, but it's not just about the end goal, it's also about how you get there and your experiences as you go through that journey. So try not to compare yourself to others. That just steals away from your happiness. Yeah.
Alrighty. I think one of the biggest things that students are kind of told when they're going, especially early in their education and stuff, is you need to network, make sure that you're like connecting with people and stuff. How have you seen that the networking that you kind of put in place when you were in your higher education pay off now that you're in your careers?
That one. Networking is very important. So if you look to your left and right, that person next to you may be your boss one day. You may be that person's boss one day. So the story from my side is that after 16 years in the training department at airlines, I worked with a number of people, and eventually when I retired, I became the director of training at one of the regionals. And then I started having people that I used to work with apply for jobs in my department. And so those people that I knew, and I knew that they were high quality, they got the jobs. There are some people that I knew that were not very good at what they did, or they had a bad attitude and they didn't get the jobs. So when you're out there, just know that the person that's in class with you may be the chief pilot one day. Work hard, do your job properly, because you never know who's going to be looking at you in the face when you go and apply for a job somewhere.
Yeah, to add on to what Lance said, a lot of this job is about who you are as a person outside of aviation. On paper, we're all going to have the same ratings, the same hours. We're essentially what pilots at the end of the day, right? So who are you as a person outside of aviation? So when you get to network and talk to people, you make connections. For example, like I wouldn't have gone my job at Delta if it wasn't for Papa. Specifically, in my interview, they asked what I do within Papa, and we went into a good 15-minute conversation about the thing I did at Papa. So if it wasn't for that, I probably wouldn't have gotten the job at Delta.
And to add on to that, so most of you guys are students. Your CFIs currently are going to move on to the regionals one day, and they could be a resource for you, because that's what happened to me. One CFI I had was here at UND, he went on to Republic, and at the time, I was applying to all these different airlines, and he just talked about the culture at Republic and how good they were in their training. I was like, okay, I'll probably go there, and luckily I did connect with him, even after years of not talking to him after he left UND, because now I am happy at Republic, and I'm glad I chose it. So students right now, please be nice to your CFIs. You don't know what they could provide you in the future.
Anyway, they're all saying it is important to network, and it's key. As someone who's done pilot hiring for a regional airline and going to different universities and different conferences and interviewing pilots, it's key to network and put a good resume together and take the time to show what you have in your diverse backgrounds, as well as get involved in community service. Give back to the younger pilots that are coming in behind you. If you're a CFI, take the extra time to work with those students, because like they're saying, that student that you work with might be your chief pilot down the road, or they might be the one to write you a letter of recommendation to get to Delta, United, American, FedEx, wherever you see yourself in your career. So it's really important to not burn bridges. It is a small industry. People do know people. So if you burn bridges or you're mean to people, people will remember that, and then you have to kind of explain yourself when you're going for a job.
Awesome. Thank you guys for that. Our next question, we're kind of shifting gears here a little bit. How is the advancement of technology changing your job? So the implementation of EFBs, automation, et cetera.
I like that one. One of the fun things about my job being a director of training is that I can be a visionary. And so we're one of the first airlines that have started virtual reality training in systems. So we have a VR headset that was developed, and all of the flows for our regional carrier are loaded onto that headset. So when you start systems training, you're assigned a headset, and you can go back to your hotel room, and you can practice all of your flows ergonomically on your own time. And we have found that virtual reality has actually reduced the amount of training time required and greatly increased the quality and performance of the pilot. So technology is really helping training.
I definitely would like to talk on this because I'm obviously on the Boeing 787, which if any of you know anything about it, it's quite advanced. We even have a HUD, which is the heads-up display. So we bring all of our instrumentation right in front of us when we come in. We can come into the lowest RVR approaches. It's just incredible. And the greatest thing, besides the wonder of the magic of the automation, is the workload management. I mean, when you have the systems that do some of your extra thinking for you. We're flying these long-haul flights to Tokyo, to Athens, Greece, and we need to manage our workload so that we can have that little bit of mental offload. So you can program things and you can say, you know, let's set up this descent. And I've seen what you guys have in your simulators now, and I'm very impressed because 40 years ago we didn't have that kind of, you know, advancement in, you know, navigation tools, automation, autoflight. So the autoflight is something that it has eased workload, it has eased stress, it has given us so much more information. So when I'm making a decision, say, for weather, for divert, I can look at all these tools I have now, and I can let the autopilot be navigating, and I can look at other things. The storms are here, I can go to this waypoint. When I started out, we were tuning VORs, we were using navigational beacons, we were tracking, and we had so much more workload in that than just allowing the plane to go to the next point while we sorted out a diversion plan. So that is the greatest thing about it. What I see as the problem with it is a little bit of a laziness that tends to come from wanting to let the automation take over. You have to keep your flying skills current. Fly the plane, click the automation off. You know, keep those basic skills you learn here at UND, because flying by the seat of the pants is basically what you need to do to continue your skills. It's like being an athlete. You have to keep flying. You have to not rely on it too much.
All right, awesome, yeah. And I guess now my next follow-up question, kind of looking back and then looking at now, especially for the people who have been in the industry for a long time, but maybe also for the people that are more recent graduates and seeing just like a shorter time frame change of how have you seen the stigma around mental health wellness change during your career? And if you guys would want to speak on like what resources or support your company provides around mental health wellness.
So on the pilot side, they're kind of the unions for a lot of the carriers are under ALPA. They've kind of started coming to the forefront with mental health and having resources available for pilots via pilot peer support, where you can reach out to your union. They'll get you in contact with a fellow pilot, someone you can talk to. There's also CERP, which is a critical incident response program that pilots are trained to talk to you after an incident that happens on the aircraft, just to make sure everything's okay. So you have smoke in the flight deck or something like that, or heaven forbid, a worse emergency procedure happen while you're flying. They have the resources there and people that will talk to you afterwards to make sure they're checking in on you and make sure that you have the resources that are available. So I had the opportunity to be part of those programs when I was at the regional, and it's really neat to see kind of how the industry is trying to now head that off and trying to promote it and let the pilots know it's okay to talk to somebody.
In my short career, I have seen the way that pilot mental health is treated go from 0 to 100 very, very quickly. As a freshman through senior, no one talked about it. Well, we did talk about it, but in a different way, where it was a problem, but there was no solution. So it's just the way that it was. And then my senior year, 4 years ago this month, a student at UND named John Hauser took his own life in a plane crash. And right from there, people started talking about it differently. They said, hey, we have to fix this. We need to do something. It wasn't the first time that had happened, but for some reason this time it prompted change. And so people started looking for solutions. At the time, we had a lot of Band-Aids. If you are sick, if let's say you break your arm, who do you want to see, your friend or a doctor to get your broken arm fixed? You should see a doctor. If you are struggling mentally, should you talk to a friend or should you talk to a professional? You should probably talk to a professional. Right now, you're still kind of stuck talking to your friend, and that is definitely better than nothing. That can alleviate a lot of stress, and they can provide a lot of resources for you. But at the end of the day, if you need a professional, you need a professional. And so there's been a lot of progress recently as far as work in Congress prompting the FAA to change their policies. So as part of the Pilot Mental Health Campaign, we have worked on 2 different bills. There's the Aviation Medication Transparency Act and the Mental Health and Aviation Act. The Mental Health and Aviation Act recently passed unanimously in the House last month. We're just waiting after the government gets unshut down to get introduced in the Senate, and we expect that to also pass pretty smoothly. And it won't make it perfect after that's done, but it will be a huge step in the right direction that hasn't happened ever. So I think the way that pilot mental health is talked about in the industry is going on the upward trend.
Okay, so it's story time. I'm glad you brought up CIRP because CIRP was championed actually by a friend of mine, Mimi Tompkins. So how many of you saw pictures of that Aloha Airlines 737 flying with its top of its roof torn off? Mimi Tompkins was the first officer on that flight. And I got to talk with her after the event, and I said, Mimi, what happened? Tell me blow by blow what happened. And she said, we were just there talking in the cockpit, and all of a sudden it sounded like a bomb went off, and it felt like someone kicked me in the chest and knocked all the wind out of me. The captain and I looked back through the cockpit door, and we saw blue sky. Can you imagine that? Looking out the door, hoping to see a cabin, but you see blue sky. She said, I was a pilot flying. I immediately knew that I had to fly this airplane or we were going to die. And she said one of the things that really struck me was as I was looking at the airplane, I saw the airplane flexing like this. And so she said, well, I'm going to die today. And so she grabbed the hold of the controls and passed out. Why did she pass out at 26,000 feet? Because explosive decompression and just the adrenaline rush that occurred when she saw what was going on. The captain immediately put his oxygen mask on, and he saw that she was slumping over, and he put her oxygen mask on her head. As soon as she took her next breath, everything came back. She said after that, there was no place to go, no person to talk to, and she was essentially on her own. So she was one of the people that started up CRRP so that there would be someone who was understanding, who was a pilot that she could talk to.
Yeah, it's really amazing to see how the industry, both from the company side and from the FAA side, is really improving in that aspect.
Perfect. Okay, next question, kind of shifting gears again. How do you think the introduction of safety programs such as FOQA, or at UND we have the ASAP program, have had a positive impact on the industry? Do you have any ideas on how we could further these programs?
Again, being in the training department, we do see a lot of incidents, and so what we have noticed with a lot of the regionals, and you've probably seen it on some of the pictures, is that pilots that go from 172 to a regional jet struggle with landings. And so when we looked at hard landings, we were able to pull FOQA data, and we were able to actually see what was taking place on the last couple of 100 feet of flight. And FOQA data actually allowed us to learn that a lot of pilots, when they cross the threshold at 50 feet, were essentially chopping the power. Don't you do that on a 172? And they were not flaring properly because they were not used to the sight picture. So what we did was we were able to use that FOQA data and actually develop a landing training spot so that we could actually teach the pilots what they were doing wrong and how to fix it.
So I will discuss this because the FSAP program is very important at the airlines. What it is you fill out these reports, whether you feel like you've violated an altitude, an airspeed, a navigational error, anything. It's collecting data, and it's also explaining reasons behind the errors. So it's so important because then we get these reports. This is an incident that happened, and this goes directly to the FAA. We also have our safety reports that are in-house company, and they usually recommend if you're writing a safety report, you should write an FSAP report as well. And it just depends on what the thing is. It can be taking a wrong turn on a taxiway, even though it doesn't cause any incident, it was a mistake made. So they are able to collect the data and say, this is a trend. This is something now in the training center we need to work on. You know, we've had people exceeding the 250 knots below 10,000 feet speed quite a bit. What's happening here? Is it workload? Is it demand by controllers? So the data collected then sends these reports out, and we can go, oh, this is something we need to train more. This is something we need to work on. So they're fabulous programs, and improving on them, I don't know, they're in the right direction, and I think they're already improving them. We have also line-oriented safety observers, so they're coming along and sitting in the flight deck and watching a flight, and it's no detriment. It's not like a check ride or a line check. They're just observing everything we're doing and collecting more data for in-house just for our training departments, and that's how they keep improving training. So we learn, sadly, by mistakes.
Awesome.
I can't really speak on furthering ASAP or FOQA, but I will say at UND, is Brian Will still the safety director? No? Okay, sorry. Oh, good for him. Anyways, when I was here, Brian was here, and he would talk about safety all the time. The first briefing in every flight course is talking about SMS systems. I remember teaching that and falling asleep myself. So just know that even though it's a lot of stuff, and I won't say it's boring, it's very important, because you will apply that once you get to the airlines. The ASAP and FOCO stuff that I learned here at UND, when I went to Republic and learned about it, it felt like review. Like, it was nothing new to me because of the safety standard that we have here at UND. So those SMS, the safety conferences that you guys have, and the first course, or first briefing at every course that talks about SMS, please pay attention to them because it will apply once you get to the airlines. That's why I just wanted to remind all the students here.
Alrighty. So here's a question more aimed towards our UND alum. Was there anything that was really shocking to learn when leaving like our UND bubble that we have here? And do you have any advice for future UND graduates on this subject?
So I guess one thing I kind of took away when I left the UND bubble was UND is very great at what they do with the safety programs and the guardrails they put up for all the students for flying with the limitations of the aircraft. But once you get outside of UND and you get to the airlines and you go fly GA with your friends, there's no more of those safety rails and guardrails that UND has in place. So that's where you got to take your knowledge and your training and learn to use your best decision-making skills and whether or not it's safe to fly. So if you want to go out and fly an airplane in 38-knot gust winds, that's your decision to go do it. But it comes back to once you leave, there are no more safety guardrails. That's where you got to take your training that you've learned here to make safe decisions and apply what you've learned to real-world application.
I'll just address this because I had to ask them what a bubble was because for me, 41 years ago, the airline industry was so different, and pursuing jobs then, we just had to get out and fly. I stayed summer school, I graduated in 3.5 years, and I was like, I need to get a flying job and get flying time because that's the only way I get to the airlines. It wasn't, I mean, it's tough for you guys today because it's competitive and there's so many people pursuing the career, but it's not like we just said, just go fly, go fly, go fly. And I don't think that I felt like there was ever really any kind of UND thing. I felt like my training was exceptional and I was prepared for any job I pursued after I left, but I really wasn't, you know, I think it's a little different now because you're so absorbed in this world and you stay here and you be an instructor for a while and until there are jobs opening up. But yeah, I think if you just go and you fly and you take the jobs you can, and eventually it all just comes together. I mean, it was a longer road for us. I mean, we started when I flew aerial photography and flight instructor, so it took me, I compared it to becoming a doctor. It took me literally 7 years with education and other flying to get to a major airline. That was making it big in the majors. But today, it's a pretty fast track. You know, I had a co-pilot the other day, you know, came right on from the regionals very quickly, and 2 years at United, and he was flying wide-body jets over the ocean. And he said, "You've been a captain here longer than I've been alive." So, you know, it was really different then. But for all of you, I'm not really sure about a bubble, but just go out and fly, you know. It's, you fly, you get your experience, and you get a job. Anybody else?
So I think I know what you mean by UND bubble. You know, most people come here, when I came here, was, you know, get your four-year degree, 102 all the way to 415, 480, and then flight instructor for 1.5 years, go to regional 2 years, captain for 2 years, and go on mainline. Well, that's not how life is going to work, unfortunately. I will tell you that now, after 2 years after leaving UND. A majority of the people I fly with don't move on to mainline, which is fine, as long as they're happy. So I just want you guys to be aware that even though you have this plan, this timeline of what goals you want to set, just be aware life may have different plans for you. And, you know, just do what's best for you, and do what makes you happy. Like, when I left UND, and looking back at it, I miss my friends. I miss being here on campus. I know Grand Forks isn't the best city, but I met my wife here. I met really good friends here. My best man, my wedding, still lives here. So take the time now and enjoy the time you have at UND, because once you leave, you're gonna miss it. Trust me, I feel that. I don't know if any other UND alumni feel that.
Awesome, thank you. So Victor, you talked about a little bit with the safety SMS that maybe learning it and hearing it in briefings repetitively can get boring. We also learn about crew resource management a lot throughout our training at UND. What is a time in your career that you've been a part of effective crew resource management or seen that put to use?
Day 1, 102. I remember coming from practice area Alpha or Bravo. like the first few lessons in 102. Coming in, I think the first fix was East Ponds at the time, or was it, what was it, whatever it's called? Billboards. No, it's the Northeast one. I forgot what it's called. I think they changed it. Yeah. But coming in, it was saturated. Radios were busy. The instructor wasn't teaching me. I was just flying straight level, fly towards Grand Forks, right? I can do that after, having like 2 hours in the plane. We performed CRM by me flying the airplane straight and level and my CFI at the time handling the radios because it was so busy. So that's the first time I've dealt with CRM all the way to now. Nowadays, we have something similar. We have pilot flying and pilot monitoring, where the pilot flying flies a plane, pilot monitoring handles radios and everything else. So CRM starts day one, 102. So let's keep that in mind and continuing building those CRM skills, being able to work under high stress situations and be the person that the captain or your CFI can rely on. Are you gonna be the person that's gonna get overwhelmed and crash out? Or are you gonna be the person who's gonna stay calm and help solve the problem and help you guys land safely?
So one of the things that UND does really, really, really well is they prepare you for CRM since like day one. And at first, because you're in a learning environment, you don't really know how it applies to the real world. But once you get to the airlines or wherever you want to work, where you have to work with other people, other resources, you really get to see how it all ties together. I went to SkyWest after UND, and one of my first flights out of training, I was flying with a captain, and we're going into Denver, and the flight attendant calls up saying one of the passengers is having a seizure. So here I am, fresh out of training. I'm like, okay, here we go. So the captain decided that, so usually in the airlines, the captain will handle the situation, and then the first officer will fly the plane. But this leg, we were flying for a couple of days now, so he trusted me to handle the situation, and he put kind of like the responsibility on myself to see how I handle it while he flew the plane. So doing that teamwork between the captain and I, we were able to get pretty much declare emergency, get to the gate, and get this person medical services relatively quickly. But that would have been not possible, or the experience that I've got from UND would have been, the situation would have been much harder to handle. And I'm just really grateful that CRM was introduced to, I guess, all of you from day one at UND, because it really does prepare you once you get out to the real world. And you're gonna have a lot of situations where you have to use CRM to get through a situation.
Awesome, thank you so much. And then, I guess this is more specifically for Christopher as a flight attendant and such a vital part of the crew. Do you have any situations that you could speak on that you've been able to utilize good crew resource management?
Absolutely. As somebody who's behind the flight deck door, it's vital that you have good CRM skills with your pilots at all times, especially since the pandemic. People's behavior has changed. That's the best way to say it. And there's a lot more incidents of people behaving badly on airplanes. But CRM wasn't around as much in the mid-90s when I started, and it really wasn't addressed. It really became more of a forefront right after 9/11. I was in Boston during 9/11, and the FBI contacted me after 9/11. Apparently, I'd flown one of the terrorists 2 months prior from Denver to Boston when they were doing training runs. And United was very, very on the forefront of leading good CRM skills, and especially with cockpit barrier doors and making sure there's always clear communication between the back and the front. And it was very important. Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, that's a really interesting perspective. I wish that we got more of kind of the behind the cockpit door perspective here at UND, so glad that you're here to share that.
Okay, this is kind of looking ahead. What are your key predictions for the major transformations and trends that will shape the industry over the next 5-10 years? And this is for any industry, flight attendant, pilot, UAS.
I can speak to the mental health side of things. I think FAA policy will be improved to allow pilots and anyone who needs a medical to seek mental health care. I think the whole medical system will benefit whether you need mental health care or some other form. I think the whole medical process is going to improve. The part that is a question mark is how are people going to talk about it moving forward? I know how people talk about it today, but pretty soon you won't be able to say, oh, well, it's true. The culture has to change about how we talk about this sort of thing. And it's on all of us to change that culture and improve it so that people don't feel stigmatized when they seek mental health care.
What I can give is my history. So the changes I've seen already, it's hard for me to fathom a whole lot of improvement going forward, but I'm sure there is room for that. But as far as acceptance, communication, being a minority in an industry, I have seen great leaps and bounds. And above all else, I will say, it's communication. You know, CRM obviously is a huge part of it. It's talking amongst yourselves and kind of figuring out who are you sitting next to for the next 9 hours in a flight deck. You know, who is this person here? And you have to just kind of tell me a little bit about yourself. You know, I mean, if we continue that rhetoric, if we really work on those programs and we all talk about how we feel, what's our concerns, what's, you know, what on this particular flight today, speak up. I mean, that is the only way that we continue to move forward in acceptance of everybody. You know, we all love to fly. That's why we're here. We want to fly the plane. We don't want somebody giving us a hard time. So communicate it, talk about it. And I think it's just such a huge difference from 40 years ago when I started flying. So you guys are in a really good place now, and I think it'll just get better.
Yeah, to touch on that, it's diversity and visibility is important now more than ever. And like I said, 30 years ago, it just wasn't there. It was, you know, you knew it was there, but it was just not represented out front. And I think United and other airlines have really made it a priority. And it's nice to see that we get represented and we get visibility. It's really good to see.
Like they mentioned, it's going to be a really exciting time over the next 5 to 10 years. Now, I think the question was more towards like, is it airlines like hiring or kind of what's going on? Or
Just if you have any like key predictions, if you foresee any transformations in the industry.
Yeah, so I'd say the main thing is just, well, I can tell you guys now, there's no crystal ball that we can have to see, you know, what's going to be in the future. Like when COVID happened, none of us expected that to happen, and that changed the industry and hiring and how, you know, the flow to the airlines were. But like I said earlier, for you students right now in CFIs, enjoy the time you have now, work hard, make those networking connections, and then just go with the flow, be chill, because life will throw a curveball at you. So just be ready for it and enjoy the time that you have now, and plan ahead, prepare, but just know that, yeah, just take your time and enjoy life.
And then I think as one of our last questions before we go to the student questions is, do you guys have any advice for things that students can do now to set themselves up for success?
I would say just have fun, enjoy the journey as you're moving along through all your courses, and have goals. And once you achieve that goal, set another goal. And once you achieve that goal, set another one. But also take time to enjoy the small little victories along the way. As someone who kind of came through here and got one thing done, moved on to the next thing, I kind of look back and have a little bit of regrets in my career of not slowing down a little bit and enjoying the process. And kind of sometimes it's all a blur to me from the training aspect just because of how fast I moved to move on to the next thing. So definitely enjoy the process as you get to where you're at the airlines eventually, but also network, make friends, and just get involved. And you never know where your career is going to take you. So like I said, just be open-minded and enjoy the process.
Yeah, I would say also network, talk to anybody, talk to everybody. Like we were talking about earlier, you don't know who you're gonna meet later on the road. And also do something outside of aviation, like who are you as a person instead of flying. Find that passion and become more involved with it, and essentially give back to your community, become more involved.
And what you can do now is, I know most of you work part-time. Just know that flying is your full-time job. So outside of that, volunteer, be part of groups, network. But I know you guys have, you got to pay for college. It's not cheap here. So, and then your time here and you are working, get in those roles where you become a supervisor or, take greater responsibility to learn how to interact with different types of people and how to work under stressful situations, because you will apply that once you get to the airlines. Work with people with different personalities, different backgrounds, because once you get to airlines, you're going to be meeting people every week, maybe every day, meeting them for a few seconds or actually a few hours and then never seeing them again. So for those of you who are involved here on the university or working part-time, continue doing that, do what you have to do, but please find opportunities to improve yourself, put yourself in those situations where you can learn and grow so that once you get to the airlines, you're set up for success.
So right now, you're laying the foundation of your flying. When you get to the next step, you'll be laying the foundation of your career. So what do you do now? Well, be disciplined. When you read that checklist, don't just read the words. Make sure that that checklist and the items are complete. When you do a briefing, make sure that that briefing is good. That will lay the foundation for being very disciplined in the work that you do. The next thing is that you want to be excellent in your ability as a pilot. And so if you're a dot off, you are a dot off. Make it a dot, make it on. If you are struggling with ground reference maneuvers, practice it. Make yourself a better pilot and always try to be better. If you have sim time, and you have awesome sims here, you have the VR lab, so go ahead and practice things that will push your limit. Try to find out what the limit is of the aircraft that you're flying. So when I was flying simulators, I would always tell my trainees, you have 20 minutes where you want to do anything. And most of them said, nah, I just want to go home. What I would do is I'd say, yeah, put me out there and put me at 300 knots. I want to fly this ILS at 300 knots. Why? Because I want to make my brain think faster. I want to push my limits. I would turn off all of the instruments and just use the standby instruments, and I'd fly full approaches all the way down to minimums. By doing that, I'd try to find out how this airplane flies upside down. And in fact, when my son was in training, his favorite thing to practice was ILS inverted. So push your limits, make yourself better, and you will benefit from that as you go through your career. And the simulator is the perfect area, perfect opportunity to push those limits safely and see how good you are and how good you can become. And the last thing is that with United and all of the airlines here, integrity is very important. You have to be a good person. You have to be a stand-up person, because when you put that uniform on, everyone is looking at you. Thank you.
Everything every one of these guys said is true, and those are the things you need to do. But the greatest thing of all in this stage you're at right now is don't lose the joy. Remember why you're here. You love to fly planes. If you continue to love to fly, you will get over every hurdle. You will say, it's so worth it. And I can tell you, when you get to where I'm at, it's worth it. It's a great job. You see the world, and you get to do what you love. And you can still click the autopilot off and fly the plane. It's wonderful. So keep doing what you're doing and enjoy it while you're doing it.
Alrighty. Unless anybody has any closing thoughts before we go to questions, I think we might Nothing else? Alrighty, does any students have any questions?
Were any of you in like Delta Propel programs or like early things like that, and did those help you, or what happened?
So I was in the PSA Airlines Cadet program, so I submitted my application for that when I was a private pilot and had the ability to network and kind of grow with the company prior to coming to Delta. So I definitely recommend if there's a way for you to get into one of those cadet programs or mentorship programs that will kind of guide your career there, definitely try to do it and get involved in any of them or all of them. It's a great way to network. It's a great way to kind of learn about the company and figure out which company you want to work for, and it's kind of a great inside look before you're there.
I was part of the SkyWest cadet program back in 2020, and that definitely allowed, it opened the doors for me to get SkyWest. Unfortunately, I was not part of Propel, and I wish I would have been, just because for me to get to Delta, just my path, had to take 5 airline interviews at 5 separate airlines just to get to where I'm at today. And so programs like Propel or United Aviate, if you have the opportunity to streamline your career and save yourself the headache from doing 6 interviews, then I would definitely recommend it. But yeah, if you have any opportunities to join any Pathways programs, definitely take care of it, take advantage of it.
So branching off of the automation advancement and the advancement of technology question earlier, what do you guys think of artificial intelligence kind of not invading, but like going into not just the cockpit, but the aviation industry as a whole?
I think there's, we can all agree there's benefits and also negatives to AI. But as far as in the flight deck, we've seen, obviously we can't stop the advancement of technology, but it's, at the end of the day, it's how the public perceives it. So there's been, at least in other countries, there's been a push to reduce the amount of pilots in the flight deck, which up to this day, the flying public wouldn't like that. I would think that we can use AI in a way to benefit us when it comes to like workload management and stuff like that. But if it comes down to, in the end of the day, it comes down to safety, right? So, and how the public perceives it. Right now, for the foreseeable future, I don't see AI as a threat to aviation. I think we can use it as a benefit to make our lives much easier in the flight deck as it pertains to like workload management.
So in recent time, there's kind of been a bigger push to maybe villainize the word diversity, even within aviation. I was kind of hoping if you guys could speak on what your experience of having a diverse flight deck is and how that's benefited the industry.
I'll speak to that a little bit. I've seen it, as I said, over the years change, and far more acceptance, far more, where we don't see gender, we don't see race, we just see a fellow pilot in a team environment where we need to be safe. We need to get the job done safely. And I've seen that. And I hate to say that I've seen a little shift again, but maybe you too have seen it. And we make it a rule, don't speak politics in the flight deck, don't speak, sensitive subjects, keep to the business, keep to, how's your family, how's your, social. But today there is a change, and as Chris had alluded to a little bit after 9/11, and then even with COVID, I mean, where we had to deal with people that refused to wear a mask on a plane. There's things that people don't want to be told what to do or how to behave. So there's been this little bit of pushback where all of a sudden, I don't know if some people that don't want to discuss diversity or don't want to address diversity
has sort of pushed back like, well, I don't have to do that because that's kind of the climate these days. Well, we're pushing right back. And I think, again, safety is the most important thing. So, you know, you have to work together. It's a team environment in a flight deck. And it's very important to handle emergencies, to handle anything, even with the cabin crew. I set up all my briefings to be, hey, we're all a team here. I need every one of you. If I have to shut down an engine, if we have to do an evacuation, we all have to work together. So we have to, I've had to tell flight attendants after the election things, there's no discussion over the carts or in the galleys about politics, okay? I need you guys to be a team. You need to help that person get down the slide, regardless of what you think of them and their views. So I think it's out there, but we just have to keep fighting it. It's just the battle will never completely end. I wish it would, but we just have to all remember for safety of flight, we're team members, we're fellow pilots, and that's it.
So coming from one of the early people, I actually got to fly with one of the Tuskegee Airmen. He was the only Tuskegee Airman to become an airline pilot. And so we've come a long way. The playing field is a lot more level than it was. And in fact, at my airline, one of the things that I made very clear to everyone that works under my leadership is that every single one of our pilots that gets hired has an equal opportunity to prove themselves. And they do.
So yeah, so with 30 years ago, you would not even know if you had a gay pilot, gay or lesbian pilot on board. You just didn't know. They were not visible. They were not out. So it's nice to see 30 years later the strides, and people can feel confident, and you know, like Nancy said, to a level playing field, and it's good for representation and diversity. But honestly, I don't think it's being suppressed, but like you said, there is some pushback, and there's always going to be pushback and a shift, and but yeah, we're here, and we're here to stay, and I like it.
I'm just curious about commuting, because I want to work for a major airline, but I also want to stay somewhere rural. And I've found that, like, with more cargo jobs, they kind of compensate for that a little bit better. So I was just curious if any of you guys have thoughts on that.
So I can answer that personally. As a commuter, I live in the Philadelphia area. I'm based out of Detroit, so I tend to bid early morning trips. So I set my schedule in my bidding software that I want all trips that start at 5 a.m. or 6 a.m. and I'm done by 2 p.m. on the last day. So I'd rather fly in the night before, get a hotel room, and then fly home when I'm done on my trip instead of spending the night there or commuting on both ends. So just for my own simplicity and peace of mind, it's easier to go in the night before, get a good rest, and then start my trip. As for people that commute, a lot of regionals, a lot of them have commuter clauses. We have commuter clauses at Delta. United has them, American has them. Some airlines give you commuter hotels, or other people get crash pads where they rent rooms from people and stay there. I just refuse to rent a room, and I'd rather just pay for a hotel room and have my own space to myself to get ready for work the next day.
I'm also a commuter. I live in St. Paul, Minnesota, and I commute to Columbus or Chicago. Here's a simple answer. Commuting is worth it if you have an airline worth commuting to, and you have people worth commuting back to. For me, it's my wife, my mom, my family's in Minnesota, but my base is in Columbus, Ohio. Well, Republic, I'm willing to commute and fly for them because they have been treating me well. I wasn't on reserve for too long, and I have a line schedule, so I do similar trips. I do early morning stuff, get a good night's rest, commute the afternoon before, and then my last day of the trip, I commute back home. That works out for me, but I know it's not for everyone, especially if you're commuting to reserve. That's a whole different story. Depending on what's happening in the industry, how much movement there is within the airline itself, and where you're commuting to, it's a lot of factors. I can't explain it here for the next minute or so, but keep it simple. If you're going to commute, make it where the airline that you're commuting to is worth it, and you have people back to commute back to. Otherwise, if you have nothing tying you down, I'd suggest moving to base if you can. Hope that answers your question.
I'd just like to address your part about cargo. So if you're looking at the cargo liners as a better way to commute to, remember, when you get to flying international at an airliner, we start at 6 in the evening and we fly all night. We're pretty much like the cargo liners. So when you get to that point, and like I said, I've had co-pilots that were 2 years with the company and they're already flying international overseas. So commuting wise, you get to a point, you got to struggle a little when you're new, but you get to a point where you can pick your schedule and you can get a kind of schedule and the kind of trips that are commutable. And people stay senior and they just stay to a point where they can pick their own schedule and make it commutable.
So I can speak directly about the cargo. After SkyWest, I went to Atlas for about a year. And the thing with Atlas, same thing, you're doing international cargo. But I would say the grand majority of the pilots at Atlas are commuters. And one of the things they do, they get you positive space deadheads. I specifically remember one of the co-pilots that I flew with, he's a DP here in North Dakota actually. And Atlas hires a lot of foreign pilots. So I've flown with a bunch of people that live in Europe, Asia, and they buy your ticket to work. So that alone, just having a positive space ticket to get to work is such a lifesaver. So if cargo is the way you want to go, they do have that option within the company.
One of the things that you should also consider is that aviation is big. There are Part 135 charter, NetJets, a lot of the other companies that fly 135 are home-based. And you live within an hour of an airport. And they will fly you to wherever the jet is. So maybe it's a consideration to broaden your horizons. And remember that commuting is there's always going to be a challenge. It's always easier to live in base. But I commuted from Hawaii to Guam, and I just made it work. I bought tickets. A number of us have airlines that have excellent commuter clauses. The company that I work for has a very good one. So it's just your lifestyle, the company that you work for, and what kind of operation you want to be flying.
Certainly. Well, just want to take a moment to thank you for coming to this event. Thank you for sharing your advice. And I think we need to do a round of applause for our panelists up here. If any students have any more questions for the panelists, there's going to be a little bit of time in between the panels here, so feel free to ask them then. Thank you.